Hello, welcome to Let the Light in TV. I am Craig Christoffersen, and today we've got the Zeapon Micro 3 slider. Now, this slider comes in three different lengths. It comes in the 500, the 700, and the 1000 versions, whereas the previous slider that they made, the Micro 2 Plus, just came in the one size. Now, these numbers, they correspond to approximate travel distance. So the 500 series goes 590 millimeters of travel. The 700 goes 770 millimeters of travel. And then the 1000 version goes 1070 millimeters of travel. Now you can get these both in manual orientation, as you can see that I have here. And then it also comes with a motor. You can purchase the motor later. Let's go over prices very quickly. So the 500, the manual version of the 500 is $399 US, versus if you bought the M500 with the motor, then it would be $600. The 700, M700 is $449, the M1000 is $539. So you can purchase the manual version as it is, or you could purchase the manual version with the motor here, and you will save $50 if you buy it all in one purchase rather than two purchases. Because if you buy the manual version and want to upgrade later to the motorized version, then the motor is going to cost you $250. So you could save yourself potentially $50 in expenses if you decide that you want the motorized version right away. And the motorized version and the manual version, they're the same. The only difference is, in fact, the motor. So there's nothing different. There's nothing different. As soon as you buy the motor, you have the full motorized version. And here is the motor itself. It comes in a little case, and this is it. And the big difference here, the big difference between the Micro 2 Plus and the Micro 3 is how easy it is to attach the motor. Now we will get into that a little bit down the line when we go through similarities and differences of these two versions. But right now, let's talk about the Micro 3, its build, its design, and its features. So it is an all metal design, but without the motor, it's really not overly heavy. I mean, that's absolutely one-handable. It is weighty, but it's not overly heavy, I would say. And no matter the version that you get, whether it's manual or electronic, the 500, 700, or 1000, it doesn't matter the size, the payload is the same for all of them. So you don't get an increased payload if you get an increased sized slider. The payload is the same for all of them. It's a 12 kilogram horizontal payload and a 4.5 kilogram vertical payload. Now it has different power options, so let's at this point bring out the motor, because of course if you're doing manual version, then it's all simply in your hands. And I do have it currently unlocked here, and so if you want to look at what it looks to manually slide, it is extremely smooth, and you can even just one-hand it. So extremely smooth if you're doing it manually, but you can get the motor. So let's start talking about power options. We're going to bring our motor out here. Now, of course, we have the classic NPF style battery, and that itself clicks in. Boom, there you go. It is now powered. Actually, I don't even have to put it on the slider for it to be powered. It is already powered, and I can turn the motor on here, as you can see. So that is one power option, is the NPF style battery. Another power option is to use a USB-C cord. The ports here are right here, little fold down flap. You just dig that out with your fingernail. So it's got a USB-C port. Of course, you can plug that into the wall and it will work fine. I have just a cheap little power bank. I wasn't able to power the unit with my cheap little power bank. Maybe you have a power bank that can be used for more heavy duty electronics. Mine wasn't able to, but powering it through the wall it is no problem at all. So it does have the USB-C port as well as a shutter cable port. That's not a power option. I'm just letting you know since we're going through the different ports on the motor. And that summarizes your power options: NPF style battery, USB-C cord, and then the only other slot available is not a power option, but it is for your shutter wire. Now, just so you're aware, if you do purchase this and it comes in the packaging, there is a couple screws on the bottom that you do have to remove before you start using the slider, and there's a lot of caution tape on there telling you, hey, watch out, those need to be removed. So just a heads up, if you do purchase that and you see the yellow tape and you're wondering what's going on, those screws need to be removed to allow the slider to move. They're just in there, and you can keep them if you want. In fact, I kept them just because if you do want to travel and it's a long travel, maybe you're putting it on a plane or something, it allows you to lock down the slider so that nothing moves and is damaged in shipping. So that's why those are there. Now it comes with a lock-unlock knob. There is no visual way to properly identify whether it is locked or unlocked. And as you can see, it takes a little bit of effort to get it to flip around. There's no visual way to get it unlocked or locked, but it works as is described. It locks and unlocks the function. So right now I have it completely locked, and you can see I'm not able to move the track. Unlock it here. Again, a little bit of a tough switch, but then we are able to move it. The slider is now included with a case. Before, the case was kind of just the box, so there was a bag included in the box. I'll again go into that during the comparison. You do get a case now, and inside of the case are tripod stabilization arms. And so this is just one of them. You get two of them, one for each end, and so there's two tripod stabilization arms. And the way you use these is you screw it onto the end. One goes on each end, and then that is going to hook up, the bottom part is going to hook up to the actual tripod leg itself. And these are included now, which is actually a really nice addition within the packaging. These are included so that whenever your track gets all the way to the end, it's not tilting. Certainly whenever I reviewed the last one and used the last one, there were instances of tilt on the tripod. And so those stabilization arms are included, which I think is a nice little touch. Now, the camera screw on the mounting base can support either a 1/4 or a 3/4 inch mount. And it pops up and down so that it doesn't scratch anything during storage. Not to mention, the mounting base itself is now much bigger. Now let's talk about actually using the Micro 3. So the motor has control buttons on it. And by the way, let's go on to how to mount the motor right now, which is so much easier. So to mount the motor, you simply click it into place. There's two little screws here that you just thread in, and the motor is mounted. You save, I mean, the Micro 2 Plus, it wasn't bad, but it was kind of deterring because it was annoying. And so actually I always just used it in manual operation. I never really used the motor on it. And in fact, even to put the motor on it to go through our comparisons later on, I was kind of annoyed, but this makes it extremely easy, and I'm a really big fan of how easy they have made to mount the motor. So the motor has manual controls on it so that if you do not want to use the app, you don't have to, nobody's forcing you, and that's okay. You can still go manual. It's pretty much the same layout and same controls as the Micro 2 Plus. And so, for example, you can set up A/B points using these manual buttons. So if we, for example, double click the power button, it gives us a little ping there. I don't know if you heard it, to let us know that our first point is set. We're going to move it over. We'll stop it here. We're going to, again, double press the power button. There you go. It is set. So now we have our A/B points. So we can do a couple things. We can double press the power button again to allow it to move. So let's go ahead and do that. And you'll see it's going to automatically move between our A and B points. So that's how we move it from point A to point B. But what if we wanted to continually loop back between our points in a continuous movement? Well, what we do is we press at either direction with the power button in a single press, and here it will loop back and forth between point A and point B. If you want to manually set the points, you can do that, and that is going to be where that flashing green button comes in. If you go ahead and hold that, then you can manually transition that into your waypoint. But the problem with that is since the motor is attached, it's pretty difficult to move. So personally, I would just kind of stick with setting the waypoints using the motor itself. I don't know exactly why that feature is included, because it's harder than just using the motor. Now, you can choose and change the speed that it moves between the A-B point during its movement. So if I want to go ahead and move the speed to full speed here, I just simply tap the power button, and here we're going to move at a faster range of motion, and then I can hit it again, and it's going to go into its slowest movement. And as you can see there, it has changed. Now, movement with the motor is extremely smooth. However, if you are more of a manual person, hands-on, and you want to do it yourself, then there is a dial, and it has settings 1 all the way through 5. 5, of course, being a whole lot tougher to move it, and 1 being a whole lot easier and smoother to move it. And if you are going to do everything manually and you're not interested in purchasing the motor, then I would suggest dial setting 1, because anything more than that, let me just take the motor off here so I can exemplify what I'm talking about. 1, you can move it with your finger. And sometimes, depending on your surface, the slider may even slide on, for example, your tabletop surface. But 1 is nice and smooth, and generally it's not going to move. But if we move it up to, for example, a dial setting of 4, where things are going to be more rigid, it's going to be more difficult to move, then we get our slider, I don't know if you can see it here, but it is sliding across the table as I move the track itself. And especially if I move up into 5, as you can see, it is just sliding across the table, which of course you don't want. Now, Zeapon do have an app that you can use, and I've got it pulled up here, because if you don't use the app and you simply use the motor, then you simply have 3 different speed settings, and that may be too quick for you. That is full speed setting. I can put it down here to the lowest speed setting. I'm gonna have it come across again. So that may be too quick for you, especially if you're dealing with macro photography. That's gonna move possibly too quick. So the good news here is, I'm gonna go ahead and stop it. The good news here is that Zeapon do have an app. So I'm connected, I've got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on, and the benefits of the app is that you can set up to 6 different waypoints, but you can also change the speed. So let's say this is waypoint A. I've set waypoint A now by clicking that, and then we have our pan button down here, and that is sensitive. So if I go a little bit less, it's gonna move much slower here. If I go all the way, then it's gonna pick up quicker. So we're gonna go ahead and set waypoint B. There we go. Now I have it at total speed of 50%. It's telling you that the time to travel between your waypoint A and B is 22 seconds. So I can go ahead and hit play, and that'll take 22 seconds. But if I go ahead and stop, we can put it at 100% speed, and you'll see my play time is going to be 12.2 seconds. And then we can also set it, what's nice about the app is you can slow it way down. So if I bring it all the way down to 6 seconds, it's gonna take 178 seconds to complete the movement. So it's gonna reset, and here it begins very slowly. And on the bottom left corner, you can loop that movement. So I've selected loop, and now I've unselected it. So the nice thing about the app is you can slow it down even more. But potentially the only negative is if you don't really like using the app, then that's the only way to slow it down to this slow of a movement. But it is there. So I don't want you to freak out saying, oh, the motor only has 3 settings and it's not slow enough for me. Well, that's okay. Go ahead, use the app, slow it down. I've got it on 6% here, and it's moving nice and slow. So let's make some comparisons between the previous version, the Micro 2 Plus, and the new current version, the Micro 3. So here is our old version. Now, of course, these are different sizes. The version I have of the Micro 3 is the 700, and then this is the Micro 2 Plus. So if I had the 500, these would be almost equal in distance. So I don't want you freaking out about the difference in size. If I had the 500, the new Micro 3 M500, then we would be really quite similar in size. So you can see the difference in motor here, the difference in height. If I go ahead and turn them around This way, you're going to see that we have a new angular design, whereas before it was all very straight on. If I tilt them up here, you're going to see that the mounting base is much bigger on the Micro 3. So the Micro 2, what we had here is a very small mounting base. I don't want you to be deceived. This is not part of the mounting base, this part right here. It's a very thin mounting base, and on the Micro 3, they have made that a whole lot bigger. They've made it a whole lot bigger. Why? Because they've brought in an angular design. Again, as I've already mentioned, it is a whole lot easier to switch the motor. So, motor off, goes like that, done. 2 seconds, however long it takes you to unthread 2 screws. On the old version, I'm not going to do it because I don't really want to drop the motor off, but there's 2 screws that you take off. And then on the bottom, you have to go and unlatch the actual band itself. And then there's another band that you have to attach to bring it to a manual version. They've made it so much quicker. They've improved the design in every way. Now, coming back to the Micro 3, it does have now padded bottoms on the legs, and these are still height adjustable, although I will say the height adjustment is millimeters, perhaps 3 millimeters of height adjustment. So if you've got a slightly uneven surface, then you'll be able to cope with that. But I do enjoy the fact that these rubber tops, these rubber legs do move and they do tilt, and so they'll be able to handle surfaces a little bit better. Although this kind of form does only allow you really to shoot off of tabletop, desktop type setting. And if you're dealing on any type of uneven surface, then of course it's best to put it on a tripod and be safe and be accurate. Okay, let's close this down. I want to talk about a couple suggestions, a couple critiques. First of all, I would like to kind of have a visual identifier that the slider is either locked or unlocked on the dial. A simple little red signifier would be nice. Now, whenever I first saw the design of the Micro 3 and I saw the motor, I thought that this would be a little knob to kind of control speed. And I think that would still be a good idea. Because, for example, we have, the power button to pick through 3 different speeds. But what if we turned this knob here and it just kind of had an outer dial that selected different speeds, right? We could have a little electronic signal here, or even just mark it on the dial, 0 to 100. So that way we wouldn't even have to necessarily use the app. We could simply just turn the dial and that would be our new selected motor speed. Perhaps I think that would be a pretty good idea. Put a dial there and then we have full control of speed. I would really like to see full control of speed. So I'm going to actually take the mic off of my shirt here and I'm going to allow you to hear the difference in the motor. So let's start with the Micro 2 Plus, the previous generation. Here is motor noise on speed 2 from the Micro 2 Plus. A little bit of a hum, but it's quiet. So let's go speed 2 on the Micro 3 and let's hear the motor noise in this version. As you can tell, it's not necessarily more noise, it's just a different type of noise. So the Micro 2, it had a kind of lower hum to it, and the Micro 3 has a bit of a higher, I don't necessarily want to call it a whine, but it's a higher pitched noise. So I wouldn't say it has actually increased in noise, as I see some other people are saying. I don't think it's increased in noise at all. I think it's just changed pitch. And I think you can still use the Micro 3 in quiet environments and you'll be fine. I mean, if I put it here, maybe I'm about to disprove myself, but if I let it run here and I'm speaking and this is going on, and for example, maybe I'm the subject of an interview, well, if the slider is for some reason right in front of my face, I don't think you're actually going to hear it at all. I actually don't think that the motor noise is going to pose too much of a problem for you. It's about the same loudness, the same decibel volume as the Micro 2 Plus motor. It's just in a higher pitch. Something I am very impressed with on the Micro 3 is the smoothness of the slider, not only motorized but manually. One problem I did have with the Micro 2 Plus is that whenever I used it manually, there would be certain areas, especially passing through this middle section. Whenever the travel head passed through the middle section of the slider, it's like it sped up and it lost resistance, and then as it went to the edge, it gained resistance again, and then I could retain that smooth movement. But here, if I just take one finger and I just apply the same pressure all throughout, I don't get what I'm gonna refer to as any kind of hot spots where there's less resistance in that rubber band. I can keep the same consistent movement all throughout the entirety of the range of the slider. And to me, this is huge, especially because it's generally quickest to shoot manually with the slider and just make your own movement. And so to have no kind of hot spots of the actual mount whenever it travels through, to have no hot spots or any changing pressures or resistance is extremely nice. And of course, what you're looking out for in a slider. Movement is very, very smooth. Setting up the motor is ridiculously easy. I'm not deterred to do it. I don't mind switching it at all like I used to kind of be deterred to switch it before. And so overall, this is, I would say, a very nice improvement. The Micro 2 Plus, I greatly enjoyed. I used it a whole lot. The Micro 3, I will use even more because they've genuinely made it better in every single way. So the M500, $399, M700, $449, and $1,539. If you'd like to pick it up, the description is down below. I hope I have properly informed you today about the Micro 3. If you want to pick it up, that's up to you. If not, there are links down below to go check out Dustin Abbott's reviews, go to his channel, Instagram, shop, whatever you want to do, that's your choice. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember to let the light in.